I don't know what to say anymore. I debated never writing again. So I guess I'll just answer some of your questions. No, I'm not crazy. I am incredibly offended that people think I am. Just because some weird stuff is happening doesn't mean I'm insane. I don't know why you guys think that having a bunch of nicknames is weird. Doesn't everyone? My dad gave me like 10 different names to go by. I guess in my last post I used Timmy instead of Sam. That doesn't mean I think I'm a different person or have different personalities. I just go by a lot of names. My dad always said that if you go by a lot of names, you get to decide who you are that day. And then for my dad, well, I don't have answers for that. He died in an explosion. A local grocery store had a fuse loose or something, and it created a giant fireball that took out the whole store and the parking lot next to it. 53 people died and almost 100 were injured. My dad was right in the middle of the bang. There was nothing left of him by the time they cleared the area. It's a painful thing to bring up, but everyone seems to be speculating. There was a mass funeral for everyone who died in the explosion. The mayor was there, a lot of people crying. There was nothing of my dad to bury, so I just got him a headstone. It was one of the worst days of my life. Actually, that day is pretty comparable to when I found out my dad was not a cop. I've called every precinct near LA. No one knows him or has any record of him. I have to accept that my dad, one of only 2 people in this world that I love, lied to me. But why? He clearly interacted with criminals. The tapes prove that. My current theory is that he was part of some group like the FBI. I don't know. I'm totally clueless. But I did transcribe another tape. And for some reason, I feel like if I listen to the tapes, if I write them all down, maybe I'll be able to understand what's going on. This particular tape is disturbing, obviously, but I can't get any information about my dad from it. Maybe one of you can find something. I probably don't need to remind you, but my dad's name was Danny, I think. Hell, maybe he lied about that too.
How many kids were in your class?
Each year it varied, but this past year I had 30. It was one of my larger classes.
And you taught first grade?
No, kindergarten. It's the best age if you ask me.
Why?
They are still small enough to marvel at the world, but they have the language to describe it. Plus, learning new things comes so easily to them at that age. They are little sponges.
Was there anything different about this past year's class?
No, not at first. It was pretty evenly split between boys and girls. There were a few troublemakers, but nothing I couldn't handle. I found 2 of the boys practicing kissing each other in the coat closet. It was innocent. I didn't tell their parents or anything. Kids that age experiment with everything.
But there was one special child, wasn't there?
No.
Daisy, I'm here to help. I believe you.
I barely believe me.
I know. I can see it in your face.
I'm only 29. I had my whole life ahead of me. I really do love children. I have my whole life. I never had any brothers or sisters, so I think I always longed for that kind of connection. That's what brought me to teaching. I love shaping the minds of young ones and the way they look at you. Like you're the only one in the world. Kids know how to love unconditionally.
Did you know how to love, Daisy?
Yes! I loved every single child who I had in my classroom.
Except
Derek.
Tell me about Derek.
He was a normal kid for most of the semester. He was a little smaller than the other children, but no one ever teased him for it. He had brown hair, just a few freckles. He was the definition of average. The only thing that stuck out at the beginning was how he never acted out. When kids start kindergarten, the first few days and weeks are tough. For most of them, it's their first time being away from home. And even though we do half days most of the week, it still feels like a long time. So I would say every kid cries at least once or throws a tantrum. It's normal. My first year teaching, I had a girl nearly bite my ear off. But Derek, well, he didn't cry at all. He didn't seem to mind when his dad dropped him off. He was smiley and excited, but did whatever I asked him to. When I told the class to stay quiet, he was quiet. When I had them do an activity, he followed the rules perfectly. Children don't know how to follow rules at first because at home, most families don't enforce a lot of boundaries. Part of my job is teaching the children how to raise their hands and ask to go potty, but Derek seemed to know all of that already. I shrugged it off. I figured he just had stricter parents. Plus, I wasn't going to complain about a well-behaved kid. But then things started to change. The other kids had settled down and were getting used to their routine. Derek started to do odd things. It started when he would draw on himself. This is pretty normal in general, but he was drawing specific pictures of stab wounds. He would draw a thick black line with blood pouring out of it. I asked him why he was drawing it, and he told me he didn't know. Then he started to draw on the other kids. It was always the same thick black lines and blood. Needless to say, the parents started calling me with concerns. I tried to schedule a meeting with Derek's parents, but they were never there to take my calls. Finally, I had to ban Derek from the markers. He didn't seem to care. He didn't put up a fight or cry. He just nodded and accepted it. That's when things got more intense. He started jumping off the playground. A lot of kids do this, but Derek was intentionally trying to hurt himself. He would have scrapes all over his body. Eventually, we had to keep him inside during recess, but that didn't help. He started to jam things onto his scrapes and cuts. It could be anything. Legos, construction paper, pipe cleaners. He just jammed it into his wounds and would keep pushing until he had injured himself even more. I told the principal and she tried to call his parents, but again, they never answered. Last week, we decided to call social services. It was beyond our control, but
It's okay, ma'am. Keep going.
It was during lunch. The kids were all in the cafeteria. Kindergarten eats early, so it was just me and my kids. I was grabbing something to eat. It's impossible for me to keep an eye on them the entire time, but Derek, he was standing on the table. I saw him and called to him, "Get down," and that's when he looked me in the eye. His gaze was... It wasn't a child who looked at me. It was sinister. And he was smiling. In his hand was the straw from his chocolate milk box.
Ma'am, it's very important that you tell me what happened.
But
Please, no names or titles. We're recording.
Oh yes. Okay. He was still smiling at me, and he raised his arm in the air and started stabbing the space in front of him with the straw. There was nothing there, but he kept stabbing. I dropped what I was holding and rushed towards him, but I slipped. God, I slipped on blood. I realized that the other kids, they were doing the same thing. They were stabbing, but not the air. They were stabbing each other with their plastic silverware. They were stabbing specific places, the eye, the neck, and the chest. Those plastic knives are small, but the way they were strategically stabbing, it did a lot of damage. Blood was everywhere. I swear I tried to help. I screamed, but no one seemed to hear me. I tried to take away the children's weapons, but if I took away the knife, they would just start digging their fingers into their wounds. I couldn't control 30 kids at once. And then there was Derek standing on the table, his arm moving back and forth as he stabbed the air. Finally, I rushed at him, grabbing him down off the table. We fell onto the floor with him on top of him.
Did he hurt you?
No. But his face changed from that smile to a slack frown. His eyes closed. His body was limp on me. I realized that he was dead. I looked around the cafeteria. They were all dead. 30 kids. And I couldn't move. I couldn't. Why didn't anyone hear me scream? Where did the blood go? There was so much blood. But then it was gone.
Thank you for telling me this.
Please tell them I didn't do it. I would never. How could the blood disappear?
According to the internet, Daisy Alvarez poisoned her entire kindergarten class. She put it in their chocolate milk. The police found her with the bodies of the children heaped on her. She was crying and shaking. There was no reason for the crime and no sign she was emotionally unstable. There were 29 children dead, and there was also no one in her class named Derek. These cases, they are not normal crimes. I don't know what to make of it. My friend Bree says to leave it alone and stop investigating. I think she's afraid I'll come across something I don't want to know. But I need answers.